Did you go and see Blake? The chiropractor?
No, not yet.
There's a good chiropractor close to you. Rick Schwartz. But if it's in town, I'll let you decide.
First, I'd like to find out if he does insurance.
Some of them do that, but not one.
I have visited a local chiropractor twice and he did marvelous things. Yes.
Go there one time. Yeah.
You made it too.
Ma. That volume, if it's all the way. Very good. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Om Bhadram Karnebhyah Shriniyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyemakshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangai Sushtuvagam Sastanubhihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vridhashrabaha Swasti nah Pusha Vishvavedaha Swasti nastarksho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brahaspatir Dadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Did we finish the Bhashya of the 10th verse? No, we haven't done that. That's what. Let's see who all came. Very nice. Nice to see everyone. Okay. Yes, Varun is here. Good. The concluding mantra of this khanda of the first Mundaka, 10th verse, it shows a particular methodology. We use a number of teaching methodologies. There is what is called Karya Karana Prakriya. For example, Karya means what?
Cause. No.
The effect cause.
To just use the thing. If there are only two choices, if it's not one, if the teacher makes an astounded face, that means it should be the other one. Right? Yeah. So if it's effect, somebody says, Karya means cause, the teacher looks shocked. And then immediately you should say what? No, not effect, cause. Because the teacher looked shocked. So Karya is effect. So cause, effect, prakriya. Prakriya means the pedagogical device of teaching, methodology. So that is one prakriya we know, So what is the cause? Jagat, correct? No. What is the cause? Brahman is the cause. What is the effect?
Jagat.
Jagat is the effect. Yeah. So this is what is this. So everything has come from Brahman. This is one way of teaching that. And we find this, in the Chandogya Upanishad, iterated very, very well. Giving the example of a lump of clay. When the cause is known, ekena mritpindena sarvam mrinmayam vijñātam bhavati iti. So when the one lump of clay is known, the whole world of earthenware is known. You don't have to do a PhD thesis on every pot, every cup, every saucer, even though it will have its own individual histories, mysteries and, histrionics. You don't have to do that. So similarly, this is called, similarly same thing with the names and forms emanating, as it were, from Brahman. You don't have to do people do PhD thesis on every, cat, bat, rat, but still it's not needed, that even if you do the PhD thesis on every cat, bat, rat, what happens? It is just confined to what we have learnt, another technical term, aparavidya. Because you can really never go to the source of that, because the source is you and it is not an object, it is the very subject, it is the very content of the word you, tvam. So this is Karya Karana Prakriya. And then we have Panchikarana Prakriya, how the gross, how the subtle became gross and all that. Then we have Panchabhuta Prakriya, then the 5 elements and how everything is first traced to the 5 elements and the 5 elements are nothing other than Brahman. Then we have Avasthatraya Prakriya. What is Avasthatraya Prakriya? 3 states of what?
Waking.
Eating breakfast, eating lunch, eating dinner. Yeah? What experiences? The universal experiences of waking, sleep and dream. Avasthatraya Prakriya. So these are all Prakriyas. These are all the ways in which this knowledge is transmitted. This knowledge is given along with the teaching methodology, which is what the knowledge is so special. That's what makes it so special. Because there's no mystery about it. It's not that the teacher retains the methodology and just gives the knowledge. Because the methodology is part and parcel of the knowledge. Because if the teacher were to retain the methodology and just give the knowledge, it would be like the cook. If you go to the very famous chef, and say, how did you make this? They will always keep something behind. Yeah. They'll either keep a little bit of methodology behind, like when to stir, when not to stir, or they will keep a few secret ingredients like Coca-Cola. Nobody knows. Coca-Cola, there is one secret recipe. It is in a vault somewhere. Yeah. Nobody knows. That's why you can have this cola, that cola, all these things, but you could never mimic the taste, supposedly, of this Coca-Cola because it is somewhere kept in a vault. And that vault is kept in another vault. And that vault is kept in another vault. And each one has password and each one has keys and everything. And the proportions and all are very, jealously guarded because it's just, it's the money-making thing. But Coca-Cola is other than you, Anatma, correct? Yeah. And so therefore, here, it is yourself alone. And so along with the knowledge that you are the whole is transferred from the teacher to the student. This is what makes the parampara effective, the teaching methodologies of both assimilating and in turn transferring that knowledge to others. This is what makes it very special, And this is what in the Bodhasara, I know this is not Bodhasara class, that comes tomorrow, but still in the Bodhasara, the author makes a wonderful point about the teacher, likening the teacher to a touchstone. What is that called? Philosopher's stone. Some kind of a mythical alchemic substance which has the power to turn everything into gold. Then he says, no. The teacher is not a touchstone because the teacher surpasses the touchstone. Because the touchstone can only turn everything it touches into gold. The touchstone cannot make another touchstone. Yeah. So the Guru, whatever the Guru touches, turns into Brahman. It's already Brahman, it comes out, so to speak. Not only does everything turn into Brahman, but along with that, the Guru, whoever the Guru touches, whosever's life the Guru touches, has the power to turn that person into a future Guru. This is what the imbibing the methodology along with this, along with the Shastra, along with the vision, along with the substance of what we are learning, therefore makes it very, very important. Very important. And so, here we have this, yet one more prakriya that we have seen, in addition to the ones already outlined. This one is called Adhyaropa Apavada Prakriya. Adhi, plus ropaha, adhyaropaha, and apa plus vada, apavada. The plus means you don't have to put a space there. I'm just separating the prefixes. That's all. So adhyaropa means superimposition. How to remember this word? You remember rope and snake. Yeah. When you see the snake upon the rope, it is a aropa. Yeah, that's why it's called rope. Yeah. Adhi means centered on that one thing, all other things are as it were superimposed. Attributes are like that which doesn't have attributes. Here in this case we have seen Brahman, Purusha. Over that Purusha, all these things are attributed. Jagat and everything that it constitutes, moving and non-moving, sentient and insentient things are attributed on that one thing. So this is a very interesting methodology. So Adhyaropa means that which is essentially formless. Purusha means what? It is all pervasive. That's what we saw in the last mantra. Purusha eva idam sarvam. All this is Purusha alone. Then what is this all this? If everything is Purusha, then what is this everything? Why do I have to account for this everything? Well, what I do is I put, as it were, I attribute the Purusha with all these attributes of name, of form, of a certain existence, time-bound, space-bound existence, starting with this body-mind sense complex. And then that is called Adhyaropa. In order to understand that everything is Purusha, I have to see that the form is non-separate from Purusha. Form has come from Purusha. When you say has come, then we are also looking at Karya Karana Prakriya. But I want to stick with this one here because this is important and sometimes misunderstood. So, everything is non-separate from the Purusha. And if everything is non-separate from the Purusha, what is happening here? All this everything means what? These are the attributes. These Namarupas have been attributed to the Purusha. And we have seen that the status of the Namarupa are what? The status of the Namarupa is not the same order of reality as the Purusha. Correct? We have seen that. Last time, in the last class, I gave a long talk about Mithya. Remember that story. Which one? The king's court and the person who is the what? The dualist and the non-dualist. Dualist. They are always dueling. And so the dualist and the non-dualist entertaining the king. Now why don't we have this? Because we have color TV. That's why. Reality TV. In those days that was the TV for the king. You just, patronize these scholars and keep them in the court and you don't have to do anything. You just put them in the same room and they start arguing with one another and you sit back and eat your peeled grapes. This is how it was. And you saw the story. And when they went to the forest for the picnic, what happened? And who ran away first? Advaitin ran away first. And then upon being questioned, like why did you run away from Mithya tiger? What did the Advaitin say? Running is also Mithya. Who said running is Satyam? Correct? And so we saw this, that the nature of what has come or what has been imbued upon or attributed to the Purusha is just a value addition. It's like saying Purusha is infinite and to this infinite, on this infinite I am putting a flower, So infinite plus 1. How much is that? Infinite. And then infinite minus 1 Namarupa gone. Still infinite. This is what we saw, correct? So Purusha evedagam sarvam. So this is what is called Adhyaropa, the attributing of the names and forms that we have to account for, not from the standpoint of Mithya as an object, but Mithya being the sum total of my own understanding of the reality. So this accounting is not counting each and every form, but seeing that what is attributed is, is not of the same order of reality as that upon which the attribution is taking place. This is half of this particular teaching methodology called Adhyaropa Apavada. So we can't stop here. We can't stop at Adhyaropa because poor Purusha will be burdened with all these things. From elephant to hippopotamus to alligator to, Chatushpadi, Dvipadi, Ashtapadi, Navapadi, nine-ped, octoped, octopus, all these things, Ashtapadi, all these things, these 8-legged, 5-legged, 6-legged, all kinds of creatures are there. Just go in the ocean, you will see all these things. In fact, they will see you first. And and if they spare you, then you can see them. Yeah. So, this is what the whole thing is. So, all these, bipeds, quadrupeds, octopeds, all these things, they are hanging on to the Purusha, correct? So, this is not a complete teaching. First you attribute, and the attribution is complete only when I recognize that which is the adhisthana, the source of the attribution, as free from attributes and the attribution itself. This is called apavada. Apavada means negation of those very attributes which have been attributed at first. And how negation? How to attribute and then negate? This is a very big head-scratching moment. Oh, this Purusha is much more difficult than I thought. First I have to attribute. And then I have to negate. Whole day I am doing this. When am I going to cook lunch? So, here, to understand the Purusha as free of all attributes is what is the focus. The focus is not on the act, quote unquote, of attribution and then the negation of the attributes. The focus, the purport of this methodology is to understand that which is myself, which is Purusha, which is free of all attributes, and all attributes I see as non-separate from the Purusha, but I also am able to appreciate the Purusha as free of all attributes. Understood? Mm-hmm. Say yes, doesn't matter if you didn't understand, it will come back again. That's why we have second mundaka, third mundaka, all that is there. Yeah. Just say yes and keep moving. Yeah. That's all. But how can something be simultaneously attributed and attribute free? But how is that possible? We just have to go back to Chandogya again. How is that possible? You take clay and pot. Better still, you take the second example given to Shvetu. Who is Shvetu? Gurukulam graduate. Yeah, GG. Yeah. So, Shvetaketu, and Ketu means comet, white comet, that was his name. Yeah, blazing comet, he was brilliant. That's why that name was given. So Shvetaketu is told, look at that which is gold, correct? And then you look at that, all these ornaments have to be accounted for. And the ornaments have shape, form, filigree design and stone studded in it and different, beaten designs and all these forms and names. One is called bangle, one is called nose stud, one is called earring, one is called this finger ring, one is called chain, one is called bracelet, all these things, anklet. All these things are there. And the attributes do not take away from the gold. In fact, the attributes are nothing but gold, but the other way around doesn't work. We cannot say gold is nothing but the chain. Chain is gold. In fact, when we say golden chain, it reveals our ignorance. Yeah. Swamiji always says, it is not golden chain, it is chainy gold. Because gold is substantive. Chain is an attribute. But when we say golden chain, we are making the gold an attribute, an adjective. Gold is not an adjective to chain. Chain is an adjective to gold. Chain and gold, chainy gold, bangly gold, ringly gold. Like this we have to talk. But the grammar, is made up of our own ignorance. So we have reversed the whole thing. That is why this methodology called Adhyaropa and Apavada. It's a twofold methodology. First you say all the ornaments are nothing but gold. And then what happens to all the ornaments? You know? Gone. No more ornaments. Then you can never see an ornament as anything other than just an ornamentation onto that gold. This is what is Adhyaropa. You say gold sustains the world of ornaments, Adhyaropa. Then you negate that. What ornament? Apavada. Do you see how the two have to go together? Because if you just say the gold sustains the world of ornament, the teaching is incomplete. Do you see how? Because then I'm looking at two things. Then, it is sitting, Adhyaropa, already superimposition, very bad translation, but we are stuck with it. And so this gold will be stuck with all these forms sticking to it. Yeah. So therefore, Adhyaropa, the technical term for attribution or understanding how these attributes have come about, and then Apavada, the negation of these attributes. And negation, what kind of a negation? You negate it's a selective negation. You negate the name and form, and the Adhisthana is nothing but Purusha. So Apavada, Adhyaropa, Apavada. Adhyaropa apavadabhyam nishprapancham prapanchate. Somebody said, very nice. So through this methodology called Adhyaropa and Apavada, nishprapancham, that which is free of name and form, free of five elements, prapanchate, is born. The whole world which is free of even being the world, free of, everything. This whole Brahman is as though born as the world because of this Adhyaropa and Apavada. We can understand this. So, this is a very important methodology that has been used in this last khanda, in this last section, in these 10 mantras. And it is important for two reasons to recognize this. First is, to understand that all the things that we see in the Jagat are nothing but Purusha. That is the ultimate conclusion. But that is very difficult to see. This is Purusha. How can I say this is Purusha? Starts with P, okay, but it's that's where the similarity ends. Purusha is infinite, and if I keep holding this in my hand, it will become smoothie. Yeah, And so this is not Purusha. How can you say this is Purusha? This is finite. This is only thing is this starts with P and Purusha also starts with P. That's where the similarity is finished. So in order to see this as Purusha, there is a missing step. What is the missing step? First, in the understanding, I have to see this as a, coming from the Purusha. And this we saw at great length last time. What did we see last time? We saw how everything comes from the Purusha. Fifth case. And Panini talking about defining the fifth case. This is a repetition. Says in the sutras, in the second chapter, talks about this, Karaka, the fifth case, as Dhruvam apaye apadanam. So the fifth case, which uses the prepositions such as from, out of, etc., is based on some unchanging thing from which all changes have come. This is his nod and salute to Brahman, his prayer in the middle of the book, which is very beautiful. Dhruvam apaye, coming from that which is Dhruvam, unchanging, apadanam. So that which, all the changes that come out of the unchanging is called the fifth case. So the fifth case here, grammatically speaking, presupposes that there is something unchanging out of which all changes have arisen, and to which we add out of, through through which all changes are sustained, unto which all changes relapse, collapse, whatever you want to say. We add those two things. Seventh case also we bring it. Yeah. In which everything is located, into which everything collapses, unto which everything collapses, by which everything is sustained. So, in addition to the fifth case, we bring in the third case and the seventh case as well here. The locative case is also brought in, grammatically speaking. The third case, the instrumental case, because of which everything is sustained, is also brought in. So 5, 3, 5, 7 is our methodology here. Prime numbers. Not a small thing, big thing. Yeah. So then what do we do with this third case, fifth case and seventh case? And out of these third case, fifth case and seventh case, the fifth case is highlighted here in this particular khanda, saying that everything has come out of the Purusha. We saw a whole endless list of the things that have come out of the Purusha. What were they? The creepy crawlies, the fly by night things, fly by day things, birds, planes, supermen, all these things have come out of the Purusha. And the rivers that flow, the mountains on high, the trees, the vrihi, yavaha, the barley, the gluten and the gluten free, everything has come from the Purusha. We saw this. So in this, whenever you use the preposition from, what are you doing? You're highlighting the fifth case, fifth case, fifth case, fifth case, fifth case. And by a certain strange grammatical formula, the fifth case has now become the first case. First it was Purushat, Parasmat Purushat, Sarvam Idam Jayate. Everything has born from that Purusha, which is not born out of anything else. Fifth case, out of, from. From this everything has come, has suddenly turned to this is nothing but Purusha. Samanadhikaranyam, very interesting. This is nothing but Purusha alone, in the sense that out of, from has been swallowed into this is Purusha. You see this? This is where this is a kind of a negation. So why do I need the fifth case if I had to end up here? Yeah, why do I need the fifth case? Why you made us go through all this? You can ask the Upanishad the question, why did we, just take a look. This is called Simhavalokanam. You go back, the lion apparently, kills a prey when it is hungry. And you can see this if you go to Africa, Serengeti forest and all, Not a pleasant sight, to see something being offed, but it has to have its lunch. So it kills something, and then even its own family members it doesn't allow to eat. He eats first. That's why it's called lion's share. Nobody, he eats as he is growling. It's quite something to watch. He growls and keeps everybody at bay, and even the small cubs, the wives, everybody, they are just sitting and looking. You please eat your share. And he has his share and he walks away. And they, even as he is walking away, until he disappears, they don't dare to come near the, whatever that hapless animal is there, the carcass is there, they don't dare to come near the body. He goes away, and apparently he looks back and says, that was a good hunt. This is called Simhavalokanam, the lion turning back and seeing what it has accomplished. So let us do that here now. Let us see what we have nailed and what we have understood. And you see, just look at all the things that have come out of this, So go back now. I direct your attention to number 2, I think. Yeah, starting from number 2. There's a long bhashya for number 1. Yeah. Etasmat jayate prana. From this the prana has come. Is talking of one's own body, mind, sense complex. From this the prana has come. From this Purusha, from this one thing out of which everything has come. So starting with one's own body-mind complex, all the senses have come, and then the senses are dependent on what? The 5 elements have come, and then after that what? Then, the Vedas have come from there, and all the forms have come from that, and this is the one that, from which the fire has come, the sun has come, moon has come, what else? The rains have come, and the ability to reproduce and carry on this has also come for men and women from this alone. The power to reproduce and continue this Jagat has also come from this alone. And then what? Then all the Vedas, the separate Vedas, Rijas, Sama, Yajus, etc. has come. Everything has come. And then all the celestial deities, the Adhishthana Devatas that come out of, that are in charge of the various laws of the universe, they have also come from this. And food has come. And then all seven things have come. Various prayers and various 7 lokas and all these things have come. And then what? All the bodies of water, the mountains, everything has come. We have a huge list, correct? The huge list that highlights the 5th case, ablative case, grammatically speaking. Everything has come out of this. But then it is just not the same. Adi Shankara has said, just like the baby has come out of the mother, it's not the same. Why? Because when the baby comes out of the mother's womb, there are 2 entities. And if you dare forget that, the baby will cry every hour, on the hour, to show you that I am a separate entity. I need to be fed, I need to be changed, I need to be burped, for the rest of my life. And so, if one is an Indian parent, okay? Yeah. So, you see, this is what the whole thing is. So, I have this idea that this is just like the mother, so the Jagan Mata, Jagat Mother has given birth in a prasava, in the biggest labor in history. She has delivered the Jagat. No, it's not the same. Because the Jagat is non-separate. It's just like one light that has, on which, one lamp on which you have covered an earthenware cover which has many holes of many shapes, star-shaped, round, square, pentagon, octagon, all these things, hexagon, and then you see so many lights. This is the ancient disco. In those days they didn't have that revolving ball with all these things. So the disco was, they just put a lamp and put a earthenware cover with various designs, and then in the dark room, and then if you moved that earthenware thing, then you see the stars moving. Oh, so many lights. How many lights? One alone. So you can say that star came out of this light, point of view. That star is nothing but this lamp, view. These 2 things constitute this wonderful methodology called Adhyaropa, for the sake of understanding that this manifest universe is nothing other than the Purusha, other than Brahman, other than the truth of myself alone. I see it as though separate at first. I see it as coming out of that, as a child comes out of the parental body. But here is where the similarity stops, because there are no 2 entities. There is only one entity. This is Advaita Vedanta, and since there is only one entity, what is happening here? The 5th case resolves very ungrammatically into the nominative case. The refuge of all names and forms, free of all attributes, free of all names and forms. So I can appreciate something as free of all names and forms, and simultaneously I can appreciate as that from which all changelings, changing things have come. As though, because what has come has an iffy status. It is a dependent reality, like even your own dream is dependent upon yourself. Your own memories, your own knowledge, your own, being, your own desires. That is what the dream is dependent on. You can never dream that which you have not desired, that which you do not know, that which is not in your memory bank. You only dream that which you know, whether it's in class or out of class, both ways, yeah. So similarly here, this knowledge, all knowledge without morphing, prior to morphing into knower, known, object of knowledge, subject of knowledge, is just prajnana ghana, it's all knowledge. And out of this all knowledge, the status of the knower, the status of the known comes along with the objects, so to speak, which are to be known, and the status of I am the one who is the knower of the object. It's just like an ocean, which is a very turbid ocean, very restless ocean. Many waves, small, big, everything. One day you see, okay, there is a knower wave, pramata. Pramata means knower. And the known wave. And object, subject. And then another day you go, it's a placid, calm ocean. It's no longer a roaring ocean. In fact, you can't even see the waves, correct? Yeah, first case. Second, all the waves have been subsumed because it's all just water. The water takes on the shape and name and form called wave. Small wave, big wave, knower wave, known wave, guru wave, shishya wave, waving wave. Yeah. But then another day what happens? You're able to see just the water. That is what is this power of this fifth case, grammatically speaking, turning into a first case. This is what saves me from being a basket case. That's what the whole thing. This is the sanity. Because otherwise, how to deal with all these names and forms? How do I subsist along with them? Only through knowing that they are nothing but an extension of me. That is what the whole thing is. Very beautiful. So this is the methodology that was highlighted in this particular section for 10 long mantras. And now we will see the concluding bhashya. I will read and explain. So, Purusha eva idam vishvam sarvam. Na vishvam nama purushad anyat kinchit asti. Adi Shankara wants to make sure that you understand this. So first he takes the first sentence. What was the sentence in the Shruti? Purusha evedam vishvam. So he takes that and he changes the word vishvam to describe the word vishvam. He uses the word sarvam. This Purusha is vishvam. What is vishvam? Sarvam. How is vishvam sarvam? Yeah, because vishvam includes the waking person, and as well as implied is the collective waking experience. What is the collective waking experience? The collective waking experience is nothing but pointing to everything other than I. Object subject difference. That is what is taken, because the other two states don't pose a problem. Yeah. Even if one is having recurrent nightmares, when is it cognized? In the waking state. While having the nightmare, nobody is saying I am having a nightmare, then they will not even be scared. They wake up and they are scared. That shows that the waking state, where the subject-object differences, preponderate, is the one that is to be, interrogated, to be inquired into. Because this is where the problems come from. That's why the word Vishwam is used. Yeah. Because if I don't know the Virat Purusha, then I'm stuck with Vishwam. And so, Virat means the collective, the truth of the waker is Virat. Virat means everything. Sarvam, same thing. So Virat is not mentioned because it wants to bring home the fact that it is all about you. So Vishwa here, that helpless, waker who doesn't want to be awake, to her own glory, is the one who is highlighted. It's fantastic. Awesome. So, Purusha eva idam Vishwam. This is nothing but Purusha. And what is this Vishwam? Vishwam, first I thought Vishwam is me, the waker. But Vishwam is idam sarvam. Oh my God! I just thought it was me, the waker, who was finding fault with everything. Correct? That's why it's better to keep sleeping. Yeah, because waking, even before the eyes open, the finger comes out. What finger? The blaming finger, the moving finger. Somebody wrote a book, Moving Finger. So this is what it is. They had some other thing in mind, but may as well have been a treatise on the sad, pathetic Vishwa. The moving finger. The one that, wakes up like this, Why you? It's all because of you. Who are you? One hand is rubbing the eye, the other hand is already started to point to the Jagat. Oh no, I have to go to work. Oh no. All because of you. Because you are not working, I have to work. And the work is also not nice because of you, the boss now. Because of you, the co-worker. Because of you, and because of you. And so this moving finger, starts off pointing at the beginning of every day. And that's what it has to be, it has to first be bent, It cannot be standing like this. Because this moving finger is ahankara, the I notion. Always blaming. And it has some friends also. What are the friends? Body. This one is the body. This one is the mind. This one is the senses. These are all just a pack of thieves, Yeah. Pack of thieves that steal my own identity from myself. These are identity thieves. These 4 of them together. And this one is the no good leader. The I notion that is identified with the body, mind, sense complex, it just goes like this. The moving finger goes and points, you, it's all your fault. You, why are you alive? Why is this thing, And then it feels guilty. Oh, it's all because of me. That also it does, rarely, but it does. Privately, when nobody is looking, it says, oh, maybe it's because of me. But nonetheless, it's pointing. And this is the one. And so the Shastra, first placates the finger, and when it's not looking, it bends it. Now what? It's kind of hard to point like this, isn't it? Then what? Then the Shastra brings in Purusha. This one. This fat short little fellow who is separate from the body, mind, sense complex, who is the truth of the whole hand. Without this, even a little pen you cannot pick up from the floor. And then this bent finger is made to touch the Purusha. And these 3 throw a fit. Oh my God, what happened? What just happened? And then you have the sign language, universal sign language for Tattvamasi. You are not the body, not the mind, not the senses. Oh, but the other time you said this is body, this is mind, this is senses. Doesn't matter. Don't be a literalist. You're not the body, mind, sense complex. You are this I notion that identified with the finite is now repatriated with that which is limitless, infinite, which is Purusha. First, this one was separate from this because it thought, okay, I may have come out of this, but I am separate. Now it's all one. This is what is this? The whole 5th case is subsumed into 1st case. You get the sign language for what? Tattvamasi. Yeah, this is what it is. But first this has to bend. Yeah, that's a very important thing. This has to bend. So that's how it is addressed to the individual waker. A waker who is in the shape of a question mark, permanently, questioning, permanently querulous, permanently complaining. And this waker is told, you are the Purusha. Purusha eva idam Vishwam. And Vishwam quietly Adi Shankara translates as Sarvam. Correct? Yeah. Then what happens? Then to make it, to clinch the thing further, he says, Purushat anyat kinchid na asti. Just in case you get carried away, okay, there is Purusha and Vishwa. Now, what about the other things? First of all, there is no such thing called Vishwa. Vishwa is Purusha. Oh, then Purusha is Vishwa? No. How everything is one-sided? That is just how it is. Go back to pot and clay. Pot is clay, correct? Is clay pot? No. Similarly, Vishwa is Purusha. Purusha is not Vishwa. And Adi Shankara says, don't look for anything else. Anyat kinchit nasti. Nothing much to explain there. It's just, clarifying that very, very well. Anyat kinchit purushat anyat na kinchit asti. Nothing else is there. And then what? Ataha yaduktam tadeva idam abhihitam. Is that abhihitam? Yeah. Tadeva idam abhihitam. So yaduktam, what was said before, that alone is being highlighted. Abhihitam means that is what is being brought out. That is what is the purport of this section. So what was asked before? What was Shaunaka's question? Knowing which everything is as well as known. Kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati iti. We may have forgotten that Shaunaka asked that. Adi Shankara has not forgotten that. And so he reminds us of that question and quotes it here. Kasminnu bhagavaha vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati iti. End quote. He quotes that because that's how this whole Mundaka starts, with Shaunaka going to who? Quick. Angiras. Who is Angiras? Student.
No,
Teacher, correct. So, goes to the teacher, and what does Shaunaka say? Please tell me that key, that master key of the universe, knowing which everything is as good as known. Correct? And so that question is quoted here, not just because we want to recapitulate the question, but because we are ending a section here, and to show that this section was just an answer to that question, a continuing, elaborate answer to that question. Etasmin iha parasmin atmani sarvakarane purushe vijñāte purusha evedam vishvam na anyadasti iti vijñātam bhavati. Okay, so the question was quoted, but what is the answer? How do I know the answer given? Other than to go through this all the 10 mantras and say the mountains came and the prana came and the gluten came and the gluten free came and all these things, instead of going through all that, how to understand what came? Very simple. Adi Shankara puts it very beautifully and succinctly. And what does he say? Etasmin iha parasmin atmani. And he says that in this, iha means in all that is manifest, and iha also means in this body, mind, sense complex, that which is recognized as the truth of all names and forms, that Purusha, that Atma alone, Parasmin Atmani. And what is this Atma? Sarvakarane Purushe. Absolute locative construction. Sarvakarane Purushe. So in this, which is the cause of everything, in this Purusha that fills up everything, that accommodates everything, that is the cause of everything, in this Purusha alone, knowing this Purusha, what happens? Purusha evedam vishvam. Knowing this, I understand that there is nothing other than the Purusha, and the Purusha includes the questioner. Beautiful. The waker. Hopefully you are asking the question in the waking state, correct? Yeah. Now, sleeping is no questions in the sleeping state. That's why everyone wants to sleep, because free of questioning. So in the waking state, you are asking this question. And as you ask this question, the questioner is also subsumed. The question mark is erased, because the questioner is a wave in that oceanic consciousness. The questioner is a questionable status in that oceanic consciousness. The questioner rises like a wave in the form of a question mark. But the questioner is nothing but that consciousness. And when the questioner has a question, oh, this ocean of samsara, and how to cross this ocean of samsara, then the ocean is but an ocean. Why? Because that ocean is non-separate from the questioner, and that ocean is not sullied by samsara. Samsara means subject-object duality. Subject-object duality is superimposed upon it, because the object is nothing but the subject, where the subject is not the object. And since it is superimposed, it can be removed. This is what is being done. Adhyaropa apavada. Removed, I see it in its essential form, and then I superimpose the attributes so that I am never away from the Purusha. So here the rug is, taken from under the Vekar. How, etasmin iha parasmin atmani, in that Atma, which is beyond which nothing exists, sarvakaran, which is nothing but the Purusha unto whom all causation of this whole Jagat is attributed. Purusha evedam vishvam. This whole Jagat is nothing but Purusha. Na anyadasti iti vijñātam bhavati. So I get the answer to Shaunaka's question. I get the answer to everyone's question. What is the question? What is that one thing knowing which everything is as good as known? Answer is Purusha. What kind of Purusha? That Purusha which is the truth of the Vekar, that Purusha out of which everything has come, and this everything being mithya, everything being a dependent projection of the Purusha. So all this is Purusha. Knowing the Purusha, the names and forms are as good as known. You don't have to do PhD on every name and form. That is what is told. We have already discussed this in detail. Further, kim punaha idam vishwamiti uchyate. Then why even talk about this Vishwa? The same question we have asked earlier. If the whole point is to, this is a similar question can be asked. If the whole point is to eat the food, then why cook it in the first place? First you cook it and then say this has this vitamin, that vitamin, and this is eggplant, this is potato, this is nightshade, this is all these things. You name them and you make a big sabji, and then what? Then you eat it all up. What's the point? Then why cook it? Well, because there is hunger, correct? Here also there is hunger to know. That hunger to know is there. It addresses that yearning to understand this. And so first, that's why we have to, cook up the story of the Jagat. And because it is seen as separate because of my own ignorance, So I see the Jagat as a collection. A foodie will see the Jagat as a collection of potatoes, tomatoes and eggplants. Everywhere. And then what? Then you bash up everything and make a French dish. It's got a name. Ratatouille. And then, Purusha evedagam sarvam. It's all one. It is nothing other than one. And the hunger is satiated by that oneness. With everything is just one alone. So same thing here. First the ingredients are named, mapped, measured, and the cooking takes place in the form of the assimilation of the knowledge. And then, or in the assimilation of the food, another kind of cooking, Vaishvanara, the food is digested and cooked twice. Everybody eats twice cooked food. There is no raw food. Even the raw food is cooked by the Jatharagni, the stomach fire. And so, therefore what? Everything is just all Purusha alone. The questioner is subsumed. The status of the questioner is nothing but, Purusha alone. First the status came out of the Purusha, now it is nothing but the Purusha. It is subsumed. Then the question arises, if that was the whole point, why begin with the Purusha? What is this Purusha? And why begin with the Vishwa? What is this Vishwa? Then Adi Shankara gives the answer. Karma Agnihotradi Lakshanam. So why even discuss the Vishwa? Because the poor fellow is keeping on doing things. Keeping on doing religious rituals in order to get something out of samsara, and to milk some dividends. Yeah. milk some things from the samsara cow which has nothing to offer. Correct? Samsara cow is an old cow, like the kinds we saw in the beginning of the Kathopanishad. Yeah. Dugdha dohaha. Dugdha dohaha means from which cow the last drop of milk assigned to it from Bhagavan has already been squeezed out. What can it give me? Nothing. Dugdha dohaha jagdhatrinaha. Jagdhatrinaha means the last blade of grass allotted to them by prarabdha has already been eaten. So they are not able to eat. What milk will they produce? Nirindriyaha. They can neither see nor smell. Sense organs are not working. So samsara cow is like that. And the frustration of this Vishwa, the waking person, is that everybody wants just to be attached to the udders of the samsara cow. Give me something, give me something. One is keeping on milking the samsara cow, and samsara cow is like this, which has nothing to offer. It has a few things to offer, but it is all those things that keep me in samsara. It's everything that it offers is the finite. It has nothing to offer means nothing to offer of substance, nothing to offer of significance, nothing to offer for my yearning to quench that question mark, to quench that interrogation. It has nothing to offer. Yet this fellow goes on milking it, and other people also want to attach themselves to the udders of this cow. So therefore, you have to look other than samsara. This is what you have to look in other places. This is what it is. Look at yourself. The person who is the milker is the one who is not needing anything. So why is it called Vishwam? Because it highlights this futile milking activity, wanting to keep on getting something out of that which is all dried out, nissara. Samsara is nissara, without sara, without essence. So out of these essenceless things called samsara, called jagat, I am wanting to get some sensible things out of this senseless thing. How is it possible? So therefore, this waker is called Vishwa, because this waker has a problem. What is the problem? Keeps on milking, keeps on doing something. Then it thinks maybe the cow needs more grass, stuffs the grass into the samsara cow's mouth. Samsara cow is unable to digest the grass, so it cares for this cow that is not able to give back anything. It's not a milch cow. It's not able to give back anything, yet the person is addicted to this doing, to getting something out of samsara, is as futile as milking a cow that is on the deathbed. Literally. And so therefore what? Therefore this activity is highlighted here, the futility of the activity. And what forms the milking is just an example. What forms does the milking take? The milking takes on the form of Agnihotra, feeding the fire, milking, same thing. Feeding the fire. Every day fire ritual, udite juhoti, anudite juhoti, keeps on, Drop of a hat, the fellow is doing yajna. Because wants are so many wants. And if nothing is, if there is no time, this thing, you have a mobile yajna. You have, you just take out the hat and put a few things and start a little yajna right here. All kinds of things are being done. Prayers are being done. And Adipadat, mundane activity, going to work, going to movies, going to malls, balls. How do you spell mall? M-A-U-L. Yeah, being mauled by all the sensory, objects, and not so much focused on the object, not really focusing on the subject. So therefore it is called Vishwam. Adi Shankara explained, Agnihotradi karma lakshanat Vishwam iti uchyate. Yeah, therefore this fellow, useless fellow who is trying to milk the infinite out of the finite is called, Vishwam. And then what? Tapo jnanam tat kritam phalam anyadetad tavad hi idam sarvam. Tavad hi idam sarvam means this is all you can get. What you can get? Tapas, you can, get some, you can get some phala out of some austerities. Jnanam here is meditation, and then tat kritam phalam. So the religious austerities, religious disciplines, and then their fruits, some punya you will get, some good karma you will get. That's all you can milk out of the samsara cow. And that further binds you into this, because with that milk you make cheese, and then you see that cheese is nothing, and that cannot quench your hunger or nor your thirst, and then the whole thing keeps going and going and going. So the whole thing keeps going and going and going. Like, samsara is better than an energizer battery, because the battery keeps going but then is gone, but the samsara is outpowering the energizer battery. So etadhi means only this much you can get. Tatcha etad brahmanaha karyam. So all this setup is nothing other than Brahman. Tat sarvam brahma paramritam param amritam aham eva iti yo vedanihitam sthitam guhayam hridi sarva praninam sa evam vijnanat avidya granthimiva dridhi bhutam avidya vasanam vikirati vikshipati nashayati iha jivaneva namritah san he somya priyadarshana. That we will see after the break. Long sentence, but very nice sentence. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. These are to be given out? Okay. Here. Actually, first one we will keep in that room, in the prayer room. 10 minutes, we'll come back. Avahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. So that long last sentence. Yeah, very nice. I'm glad you're attending on the other one. Whichever one works for you, live stream or this, doesn't matter. Yeah. So, Kim punaha idam Vishwam iti uchyate. We saw that. Why is this called Vishwam? Because we have to take care of this fellow, this restless fellow, the jiva, who is running around in circles, trying to milk the samsara cow, which is milkless and which does not have the capacity to satisfy the wants of this person. Correct? And then not only is he or she, the jiva, engaged in all these rituals, also engaged in other disciplines and austerities. What are the austerities? In the form of tapas, in the form of meditation, etc. And so this restless person who is looking for ways to fulfill themselves without knowing that they are the very source of the fulfillment they seek, such a person is called Vishwa, because they are limited to that phala. Phala means what? The fruits of their labors in the form of punya and small things in samsara, ice cream, etc. And so this is a small, that's all it is, you can say. Something that, something that helps me to, have some sensory delights. That's all it is. That's all it can give you. But those delights are not the light which I am seeking. That is what the whole understanding is. And so, tat cha, etat brahmanaha karyam. Why are they not what I am looking for? Because they are nothing but a projection of Brahman. Here karyam means not effect, but how we have been seeing, a projection, a manifestation of Brahman alone. And they have a finite quality, because that which is the infinite is supporting the finite manifestation, like even the lump of clay, supports the whole clay world, projects the whole earthenware world of pots, cups, saucers, figurines, etc., made of clay. So similarly, this whole Jagat of finite delights is supported by the light which is Brahman, which is self-lit, self-effulgent, which manifests in the form of I am, I know, I am. That light of awareness is what is, which can never, be supplanted or, or exchanged for all these delights. This is what is being pointed out. Tasmat sarvam Brahma paramritam. Paramritam is from the Shruti, the word paramritam. So tasmat, therefore, what is this Brahma? Paramritam, param amritam. It is para and it is amrita, karmadharya. Paramritam means it is a descriptive compound. It is para, it is absolute, because beyond which there is no other thing that I am seeking. I don't know I am seeking Brahman. Therefore, I have all these desires and quests, and because of the quests and requests, what am I doing? I am trying to fulfill them here in finite ways using finite means, and thus therefore I cannot produce the infinite, because the infinite is not a product, it being the very Swarupa, the essential nature of myself alone. And so therefore Tad Brahma Paramritam. So here we are talking of that which is the seeking, which the quest and the restlessness that I am an incomplete person, and the wrong ideas and understanding are what? Dismissed. This is what is called para and absolute, and amrita, because it is amrita because it gives me deathlessness. How does it give me deathlessness? Not by kaya kalpa. Kaya kalpa is an Ayurvedic procedure of removing the oxidization from the body so that you have a new lease of life. That's not what we are talking about. Not what is that called? Panchakarma, Kaya Kalpa, etc. But deathlessness by knowing I am not the body, mind, sense complex. I am the truth that is manifest in the form of this body. Aching, ailing, body, hopeless body. And then what? I am that which is abiding as it were in this body, but I don't need to get rid of this body to be free. Even while abiding in this body, I am free. Like even the pot space inside this little pot is already free. The space in the pot doesn't have to go like this in order to mingle with the space outside. So too, whatever is contained, so to speak, contained within heavy quotes, whatever is Chaitanya, that consciousness which is as though abiding in this body, mind, sense complex, has a space-like quality in the sense that it is abiding all right, but it is not trapped. So this is what is being pointed out. And then so, this is Amrita. Amrit, knowing this, I am, free of this finite feeling that I am subject to death. How do we know this? Because this Paramritam Brahma Ahameva iti. I have to internalize this deathless Brahman as myself, this deathless, infinite, whole, limitless consciousness. Ahameva, I alone am that. This is the Mahavakya here. Paramritam Brahma Ahameva Asmi iti Yaha Veda. The one who sees this, the one who knows this without a shadow of doubt, where in one's own heart, Nihitam, one who recognizes Brahman as the truth of oneself, as the truth of the knower and the known, as the truth of the subject and the object, as free of both object and subject, as the truth of all attributes yet free of all attributes. In all these ways, as the truth of that over which everything is superimposed but which is itself free, essentially speaking, of all superimpositions, the one who knows oneself as such, then what happens to them? Nihitam guhayam. Guhaya here means buddhau, hridi, buddhi. We have seen the connection of guha, which means cave, and buddhi. Because the buddhi is like a cave, because it is dark with ignorance. I cannot see myself around, and I don't see, that Ishvara lighted within. Yeah, even though Ishvara is the source of all light, the Ragadveshas as though eclipse that light. So I need another light in the form of Brahma Vidya to light up that Ragadvesha first. That's why when people start studying Vedanta, they feel worse before they feel better, because first the Ragadveshas and the bats of doubt and the stalactites and stalagmites of hopelessness and fear are lit up. And then one removes it through one's own grace, through the grace of the Shastra, through the grace of the Guru, through the grace of Bhagavan. And then what? Then when that little pruning and cutting is taking place, then, Bhagavan shines within. This little light, joins that light really, because it's nothing other than that. And so, this is how it is made to know. It's already me, the one who knows, even in this ignorance, surrounded as I am by ignorance, still I am that Brahman. Yo Veda Nihitam Guhayam. I'm going a little fast because this all has been done in great detail. So, the Buddhi is called Guha because it hides, the infinite, hides it from itself, as it were. And what is the hiding factor? It's the eclipse of self-ignorance. And then what happens when you know this? Because this everybody wants to know. What am I going to get out of this? इससे मुझे क्या मिलेगा? What will I get? Because, I have sat through so many Bhashya classes. Yeah. And I don't see any changes. And also this Sanskrit is very difficult. And then not only is the Sanskrit difficult, not only have I sat through many Bhashya classes, between one Bhashya class and the other Bhashya class, I have happily forgotten what was taught before. So what is it going to do for me? Why should I keep attending? Why should I keep attending? Why not go somewhere else and do something else? Well, the answer is given here by the Shruti herself, which Adi Shankara exemplifies. Yo Veda, etad yo Veda nihitam guhayam saha avidya granthim vikirati. Vikirati is a wonderful word. Kirati disperses, vikirati especially disperses. What? Disentangles. What? The knot. Pun intended, N-O-T. I am not Brahman, I am not the whole. And also K-N-O-T, the knot of ignorance. That which has tied my life up in knots. Yes. How do I know that I am Brahman? Through another knot. I am not this, I am not that, neti. Yeah, so many knots. Some good, some not so good. Yeah. And so, avidya granthi. Granthi means this self-ignorance is like a granthi. Granthi means it's a K-N-O-T. It's a knot here. Even if you take a simple knot, slip knot it's called, correct? Yeah. Then, there are two ends after the slip knot. One is not to be pulled. If you pull that, what will happen? What you don't want to happen will happen. The knot will become tighter. To resolve the knot, you have to pull the other side, which will loosen, which will untangle the whole thing. So similarly, this whole issue of self-ignorance is appears like a simple slip knot. Self-ignorance is no big deal. Okay, I'll just read an Upanishad. I'll just go do something. I'll just meditate under a tree and self-ignorance will go away. I'll do some charity and self-ignorance will go away. These are all, tugging at the wrong string. When I approach self-ignorance through doing, which is what was described as the definition of the word Vishwa. That's why you see there is a connection. That's why I was wondering why he describes Vishwa as the sum total of this milker, with an empty bucket sitting under the samsara cow and then milking, more and more of nothingness into his bucket, this jiva. And why? Because here, this knot of avidya, this granthi, this slip knot means it has slipped me, it has escaped me. This vidya has escaped me in the form of, it looks simple. I just have to tug at one end and the whole thing will unravel. And so thinking, I tug at the wrong end through all kinds of efforts. Striving, one life gone. Becoming an accountant, another life gone. Third life, becoming a doctor, becoming an engineer, becoming this, becoming that. Very unbecoming. Yeah, becoming. Then what? Fir kya? This is the fir kya psychology. Fir kya means after this what? After this what? What next? That one, that thing which stops this question in its tracks. What next? Because there is nothing next other than this. There is nothing next to it. There is nothing other than this. There is nothing more to be gained, because I am finally saying I am satiated. It's like the person who goes to a buffet. So many things, has little bit of pakodas, little bit of chutney, little bit of that, what is that called? That papad. Those flat things that are there. And then has all these things. Not yet. Then you have those idlis, whatever is there, you keep piling on to. Not yet. Then finally, gulab jamun. A fried ball dipped in the thickest possible sugar syrup. And, it's been sitting there for some time. And that goes in the mouth. Then you say, aha, satiated, only for 2 hours. But, that's not the question. The example is only up to this. So the whole buffet is for the sake of dessert. You see? Yeah, that's the whole thing. And so like this, all the karma kanda, all the actions, all the doings is for the sake of that little sweet, that sweetness which comes at the end of my quest. That sweetness, knowing that I am this gulab jamun, I am surrounded by the sweetness that I seek. It's like the sugar cube saying, I want to be sweet, please make me sweet. This housewife has put me next to the chili pepper bottle, and I'm always worried that, one side I'm having salt, one side my roommate is chili pepper, and surrounded as I am, my sweetness is, waning. And the sugar is told, you can never wane. Yeah, you are sweet. You are already sweet. So it's a discovery. It's not a doing, it's a discovery. That's pulling at the right end of the string through this. And through which discovery, the avidya granthi, the one that had me tied up in knots over how to cross this samsara, just goes away. Samsara itself goes away. So you say there is nothing to cross. I was taking swimming lessons and I was looking for flotation devices for no reason, because there is no ocean. The ocean has been reduced to a notion. That is what is called the knot of self-ignorance, which has to be resolved through the study of the Shastra, under a person who is qualified to teach it, who has themselves undergone their own granthis being tugged at by their teacher, and their own, their own avidya resolved. That person you go to and study. Not somebody who says, I know all this by myself. And then you tell them, you please enjoy the knowledge, keep it to yourself, don't give it to me. That is the power of the lineage. This is what the whole thing is. And so, then avidya granthim vikirati means dissipates, disperses, unties, and disentangles. When? Not in heaven, not after death, not after the droppage of this body. Iha means what? Here. In this body, asmin janmani, in this lifetime itself, this freedom is yours. That's why it's called Jivan Mukti. You don't have to die in order to be free. Just like this pot space, does not have to, for the pot space to be free, the pot doesn't have to be broken so that the pot space is released. The pot space is already free. The pot space needs space guru to tell it, you are nothing but me. Yeah, that's what the whole thing is. And so the pot space is already free without needing to break the pot. Likewise, the jiva is already free despite of having a upadhi, a questionable upadhi, an upadhi that is more of a burden than a delight. Still, even in this kind of an upadhi, the person is free, totally free. And this is something that we have to understand with the help of the teaching. This is what is being talked about. And then avidya granthim iva, he says it's like a knot. Why? Dridhi bhutam, because you have been tugging at the wrong end for so many audio problem. Okay, 1 second. Either go on to live stream or log in and log out and log in. Yeah. So that's what you do from next time. Anytime you have this, you either log in, log out and log back in. That's why we have 2 classrooms. You just go to another classroom. Yeah, the live stream you can go. So now this avidya granthim iva means like even a knot that is tugged at the wrong end. It is dridhi bhutam. This granthi dridhi bhutam means it has become strengthened, because I have spent so much time tugging at the wrong end. The thing is just all in knots. Yeah. And now comes the Vidya and says, no, not the way of doing, the way of teaching, the way of knowing, and then in one tug itself, with the proper effort, directed in the proper manner, in the proper time, in the proper way, this knot is resolved. That is what leads me to see that I am free of death, I am free of disease, old age, etc. And so, and then nashayati, vikarati, vikshipati means disperses, nashayati, iha, destroys, right here, in this body, jivan neva, namritaha, san, not after death, right here itself is resolved. He Somya means here the student is called Somya. Oh, you loving, lovable fellow, lovable one. This shows that the teacher is pleased with the way in which the student is internalizing the teaching. So it's an appreciation from the teacher. Oh, you dear one, oh, you good looking one, oh, you nice person, oh, you wonderful person. That is all these are all the various meanings of, understanding the word Somya. And so that concludes, what does it conclude? This section, this first section of the second Mundaka. And what follows the first section of the second Mundaka? Second section of the second Mundaka, which comes with a very beautiful mantra, some very nice mantras we can look forward to here, and we are going to chant it and then see what it says. Avissannihitam guhacharan nama mahatpadam atra etat samarpitam ejat pranat nimishat cha yadetat janatha sadasat varenyam param vijnanad varishtham yad varishthi, there is a yad hidden there, param vijnanad yat varishtham prajanam. Yeah, this is kind of in a prose form because it doesn't fit into the meter, so we have to read it like that. Yeah, let us see the meaning of it. Avihi is a beautiful word. Avihi means light, and avihi also means that light which is that light of consciousness. No other light is called avihi. And it comes from the root word av, to protect, the same word that om comes from. Avihi comes from ava. Avati rakshati iti avihi. Ava plus there is some sutra, maybe Unadi or something, not Paninian, but there is a sutra that avi plus the avi plus is or something, there is a suffix, so it becomes avis, and ava plus a plus ava, and then is. Ava, samantat avati means completely protects. And so that light of consciousness alone is called avi. This avi is not, is not like a light, literally speaking. It is that because of which all activities take place. It's self-actionless. It is because of that awareness which supports all actions, itself does not do anything, which supports all knowledge itself without being the knower or the known. It is free of the status of the knower, it is free of the status of the known, but yet it supports, without this avi there is no knower, without this avi there is no known. It supports the subject and the object differences while being neither the subject nor the object, but while being that light of consciousness which morphs, as it were, into the subject or the object. Very beautiful. Avihi. And then this avihi is where guhacharam. It is moving. Oh, yes, now you said it is unmoving. Well, it is as though moving where? In your own buddhi. Mahavakya. This avi that I seek, I want that consciousness which is beyond duality, which is beyond dichotomy, which is neither known nor knower, nor seeker nor sought, nor, having any status, nor jagat, nor this, nor karya, nor karana, nothing. What is this? That which supports everything. It is you. Where is it? It is right where you are asking, that same place from which you are asking the question. That is where it is. In fact, it is supporting this very question. That which supports the question, where is it? And that which supports the one, the cognition of ignorance. Interesting. That which supports the cognition of ignorance is that cognition which is all knowledge. Because when I say I don't know aham, I don't know I, what am I saying? I know that I don't know myself. That I know is avi. Yes, I know. Okay, good. So, this is what is avi. Where is it? Sannihitam. As though buried deep. It's not buried or anything. It is just distracted. It is difficult to recognize. Durgama. It is difficult to reach and recognize because it has many layers of, of errors. It is surrounded by many layers of errors. It's like a person wearing 5 sweaters. Suddenly got cold and kept on wearing 5 sweaters. And then the doctor wants to give them an injection. You can't give the injection to the 3rd sweater because that's what will happen if they just go on the surface. So you have to ask them to disrobe these sweaters, panchakoshas, as it were. That's why I said 5. So these sweaters you disrobe, you remove. This is actually I have seen because once I was volunteering at a hospital somewhere in India, and then this child with a pneumonia was all bundled up, came like a small little, bundle really. 2-3-year-old child, but looked so fat, inside was tiny. And all these sweaters the mother had put because having pneumonia. And the doctor wanted to check, nothing you can do. So you removed one sweater, you removed. I said, how many sweaters does this child have? We kept removing. 5 or 6 or 7 sweaters later, then this tiny little child, and then then the doctor could put the stethoscope and check up and listen to the lungs and everything. And so like this, to get to the Atma, get to within quotes, you have to go through these sweaters. Why are they called sweaters, the panchakoshas? Because they make you sweat needlessly. Yeah. And these are all what are called loci of errors. The place where I make mistakes, that is what is called kosha. Koshamiva achchadakatvat kosha. It is like as though a covering, because it covers not the Atma. What does it cover? My understanding it covers. I am as good as the body because, you touch here, you touch me. Yeah, you touch here, you don't touch me, not me, me, not me, me, not me, me, not me, not me, not me, me. Body identification, correct? And then that already makes me sweat literally. And then then the other one is what is the prana. You can't go around with a clothespin on the nose, because then you breathe through the mouth, then you close the mouth also, then you feel it's all over. You become purple, and then you have to breathe. You cannot live without the breath, so the breath becomes another sweater, so to speak. That has to be cognitively removed to see through the fact that which needs to breathe is not Atma. Body needs to be blessed by the breath for it to be sentient. Atma is the source of the sentiency itself, because of which it is able to bless the body with the prana. So Atma precurses prana, not the other way around. Prana is not, prana is dependent on Atma, not the other way around. Atma is not dependent on prana. One more sweater in terms of the wrong cognition removed. Then I'm restless, correct? I'm angry, I'm sad. Here is the identification with the mind, with the thoughts, with the thinker, with the object of thought, subject of thought. That Atma is that light which supports, that light, that Chaitanya, that Avi, that supports the cognizer and the cognized while being simultaneously neither the cognizer nor the cognized. It morphs or manifests as the cognizer and the cognized. And then what? One more sweater gone. Yeah. Then I am the doer. This is a very bad, identification. I am as good as the sum total of my doings. My doings lead to my undoing. That's all it is. I am a karta. Karta means what? I am the doer, doing. Can't sit quiet for 1 second. And then what? Therefore I am stuffed with regret. The more I do, the more regrets I have. Always, why did I do this? Why didn't I do this? What such an idiot I was. Why couldn't I do this? Starting with the regret. Why didn't I find Vedanta at age 5? It is the first regret. Why my whole youth I whiled away doing this and that? And now I can barely stand on 2 legs. Now Vedanta has come into my life. What was I doing then? Regret. And then what? That is the 4th sweater. Cognitively removed, not literally. Then finally what? I am as good as the phalas that I enjoy. Nobody does just for the sake of doing. Doing is for the sake of enjoying something as a result of the doing. Bhogaya karma. And so this karma I enjoy in the form of the karma phala. I am as good as what is dished out to me. I am the victim of my own doing. I am the victim of other people's doings. That is also a very sad identification. So these wrong identifications, is why, the Shruti uses the word nihitam, guhacharam, sannihitam. Sannihitam means very well ensconced by layers and layers of ignorance, which has morphed into misidentification, wrong identification with the body, with the mind, with the prana, with the senses, with the notion of doership and the notion of, victimization. Sannihitam. But it is charam. It is moving right there in that very buddhi which I seek to understand, but not recognized. It is moving because it moves as though along with the thoughts. When I have a thought. When I don't have a thought, it is stationary. So, guha charam, very interesting. It moves with the thoughts. More about that, we'll discuss in a little while. Let me just finish this translation. So, it moves with the thoughts it doesn't move. In another Upanishad, tadejati tannejati tad dure tadvantike. Ishavasya Upanishad. Very nice. Tad ejati. That moves. Oh, it moves? I thought we are looking for that which is stationary and fixed. No, it moves. Oh, immediately. Tat na ejati. It doesn't move. Come on, make up your mind. It is both that which moves and as though and doesn't move. Essentially, it doesn't move. But when you have a thought, that light of consciousness when you are asleep is not asleep. It is awake. It is always awake. It is always aware. That's why you can wake up and say, I slept. But when you are awake, then it is moving. Why? Because the senses are moving, the senses are contacting the objects. Then you say pot, correct? Pot. And then, as it were, that Chaitanya, that Avi, that light of consciousness goes and feels the pot, as it were, recognizes the pot, brings back the information. Now the pot is stuck in the head. Pot. As what? Pot thought. So in pot thought there is a movement, correct? Because here is in the word pot thought, the thought of a pot is pot thought. So the thought of a pot, there is movement. Because that light called Avi, that light of awareness, has gone and contacted the pot and brought it back in the form of a thought, correct? So it has two components. The invariable component of that light, which always is that light of awareness, and that light of awareness in relation to that pot. That pot which is in this place, in this time. Etad deshakala vishishta, Ghata Chaitanya. Now it has become Ghata Chaitanya, aware of the pot. Pot awareness. Pot thought is nothing but pot awareness, which is nothing but awareness as though qualified by the thought of a pot. Very interesting. So that's why it moves and it doesn't move. It is very far and it is very near. Very far when I say I wish I could go to India. Mango season. I'm sitting here and missing. I'm eating stupid Mexican mangoes when I can have real Alfonso mangoes. This man is sitting here thinking. When the man is sitting here thinking, the man has already gone to India. Yeah, not mango, man gone. Yeah, So it's the person is already in India. You think of India, it is right here, right now. This is na ejati, but ejati, it has already moved. Tad dure, it has gone so far, 10,000 miles, it has gone to India. It has already mentally enjoyed a mango, this avi. And then what? Tat vantike, avantike means it's right close. Tad vantike, it's very close, it's right here, sitting right here. I have travelled 10,000 miles, enjoyed mentally the mango without moving a muscle. That is what is called this avi. So guha charam, it is as it were moving in the buddhi, looking and supporting all the thoughts, itself thoughtless, itself movementless. Guha nihitam, sannihitam, guha charam. And then what does it do? And nama. So how do I recognize it? Mahat padam nama. Means it is the Mahat means great. Great means big, huge. Purposely there is no no size given. Sizelessly big, limitlessly big. Mahat is a synonym of Brahman. Mahat. Brahman is again from Brih, huge, colossal. So Mahat Padam Nama, how do I recognize this? This light that moves, that doesn't move, that is everywhere, that is in my own buddhi, that I cannot recognize. How do I see it? Well, think of it as the ultimate, as your ultimate destiny, your ultimate stop. Padyate labhyate iti padam. That which is gained, that which is reached, that which is the goal is called Padam. Mahat Padam, the ultimate goal, my destiny, my ultimate stop, my destination of the journey of the jaded jiva. The light at the end of the Jivik tunnel is this Brahman. is this alone. Mahat Padam Nama. And where is it? Atra etat samarpitam. Right here it is. In the Guha, in the Buddhi. And in this has taken refuge everything that has name and form. Everything that has name and form has taken refuge right here itself. Atra etat samarpitam. Samarpitam means it has taken refuge. It is as everything is as though located right here, right now. And what are the things that have that are quote unquote located here? Ejat, everything that moves is the truth of everything that moves is in that unmoving avihi consciousness, that light of consciousness which is at once recognized as I am, I know. Pranat, everything that breathes. Ejat can be also insentient things that move like vayu, etc. Pranat, sentient things, things that breathe, insects, etc. Everything that breathes, everything that relies on prana. Prana itself is avi, but all the things that rely on prana are also nothing but avi. Nimishat. Nimishat means things that wink, blink. Yeah. You think of the eye of the alligator. Does it blink? No. That's why in a blink of an eye, the leg is gone, the hand is gone. But then you think of some other things that blink. Goldfish, birds, owls. Owls have eyelashes, everything just like human beings. You should see the owls closing and opening the eyes, very disconcerting. It looks like a human being. And then you see all cows, etc., horses, cats, dogs, the slow blink, fast blink. And then there are non-blinking ones like the alligator. Chakarat, that cha shabda, nimishat, cha. Then there are these non-blinking ones. Yeah. Crocodile comes close to aluptadrik. Yeah, keeps on seeing without blinking. Or you can even take it as things without eyelids. Yeah, sometimes some eyes don't have lids. So you can take it like that. Things which have eyelids, things which don't have eyelids, or things that blinks, things that blink, things that swallow you without blinking. And so all this, all this is nothing but, have their basis, have their adhisthana in avi, in that light of consciousness, And then what about all of them? Yad etad, that which is this. Janatha. Janatha is, plural, second person. All of you, only Shaunaka is there. Perhaps he is joined by other people, or perhaps the Upanishad is speaking to all the people who are studying the Upanishad right now. All of you, please know Janatha. Urgency here is there. You have to know this. You must know this. And what is this? Sadasad varenyam, that which is both having form and is formless essentially. Varenyam, that alone is to be chosen. That is the object of your pursuit, the subject alone. That alone is to be understood. That alone is to be worshipped, is worshipful. And that alone is param. That is the ultimate pursuit, knowing which you are satisfied. All your desires are fulfilled, knowing this as yourself. And then what is that? That which is exalted, varishtham. Varishtham generally means, exalted, but here it means beyond. Beyond what? Vijnanat param. Prajanam vijnanat param. So it is beyond param. What? The most exalted one is beyond the understanding of the people. Prajanam vijnanat param. Because they are all looking for objects. But it is really the truth of the subject which is mistaken for the objects, and the mistake is removed. And that is how the avi is recognized. That is very beautiful. Yeah. It's all from the standpoint of that consciousness. It's all Mahavakya. From the standpoint of that, I know that my own light of awareness lights up this whole universe, because without me, there is no universe. Even on the level of the cognitive basis, I cognize, therefore it is. This is what has to be really, really understood. Very beautiful. And more we will see next time. And when is next time is a good question. That I will let you know very soon for this class to meet. And then I will let you know very soon. And within a few days, I'm hoping to come up with a schedule. And then this afternoon we have 4 o'clock we have Bhagavad Gita class, Sthita Prajna Lakshana, correct? Yeah. Yeah, Sthita Prajna. What is the characteristics of the enlightened person of knowledge? It will be wonderful. So you can come to that. And then tomorrow, 9:30 to noon, we have a ongoing class, the 9th and 10th classes. 8 classes have gone already, and so 8 sessions. Actually, that's 16. So 17 and 18 tomorrow we will see, called Bodha Sara. And for those who are coming for the first time, if you look, here in the Adobe Classroom. So welcome to everybody who is here for the first time. And if you look in the Adobe Classroom, all the texts are there. Current class text in the middle, little blurb here, pod. And so you can download Mundaka Upanishad. You can download also, what is that? Narahari's Bodhasara, here it is. So like this, you can download everything. You just click on that and then you say, download file to my computer, one thing will come. You click on that button. First you click on the desired text and then you click on the button, so you will have it. You can follow along. You can learn to chant it along with us and enjoy the class even more. Yeah, thank you for attending. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. I'm open to questions. If there are, you can ask. In person, online, yeah.
You were using the word Chaitanya.
Chaitanya, yes.
And could you explain, is light of consciousness?
It is consciousness, yes.
And is there more?
Is there more means?
I know that your name used to have Chaitanya.
Yeah, that is consciousness. That's all it means.
Okay.
Yeah. Chit means consciousness. Chaitanya is the abstract noun of consciousness. Yeah. So, is sleeping similar to death? No. It's not similar to death, because the sleeping is happening. Yes, you are dead to the world for a time being, but you come back. The difference between sleeping and death is that from one you come back, from the other one you don't. That's the difference. Okay? Yeah. You come back to the same world, in other words, to the same body. Yeah. And that is sleeping. And the day one wakes up and doesn't, recognize anything, that is not sleep. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Last time we had plums, this time we have apricots.